All right, it's here it is. It's one of those days. This is the fourth time I've tried this fucking intro. Anyway, happy July 23rd, Monday. Welcome to the show. I do not know what's wrong with me, but I can't spit this intro out. I think my brain is just completely cooked today. I'm trying to stay focused. I should have taken my what is that stuff? Alpha Brain or whatever. But anyway, I think I'm just scrambled because I've packed up the apartment and I'm sitting in here. It's completely empty, and the end of the Thin Wall apartment tour has come, and it's scary. I haven't slept that good in the last month. I'm about to go into full-blown, as James Hetfield would say on Wherever I May Roam, a nomad, a vagabond. Call me what you will. And that's what my life looks like. Midsummer here. I'm looking forward to it. I also know it's going to be scary. Who knows what's going to happen? I've got the stuff in storage. I'm going to hit the ground and follow this comedy train to wherever it takes me. This week it takes me to Montreal, which is pretty fucking cool. And I'm doing JFL. And I talked about it before, and since I've talked about it, I've got like 4 shows now. I'm doing the stand-up on the Spot show on the Thursday. Friday night, I'm doing Best of the Fest. Saturday, I'm open for Chris D'Elia at his Netflix special shooting. And then I'm doing the LOL Kevin Hart show Saturday also. So there it is. That's 1 week that'll be in hotel rooms, and I just look at it as week to week. What am I going to do? Where am I going to be? And let's see what happens. I'm down for it. And I know you guys are probably like, this guy is a fucking lunatic. Yep, absolutely. And as I get older, I was telling Bill Burr last week, I've never felt more lost in my life than right now at 52. But, I think that's when you dig in and you really see who you are. I'm looking forward to finding that. Hopefully it's something good. If not, it'll be a great story in chapter 20 of my book one day or whatever. I want to say, let's see here. My guest today. This is an honor to have this guy on. My guest today is Benmont Tench, who played keyboards his entire life in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I mean, almost his whole life. And, I've said over and over, to me, I think the keyboards are the greatest rock instrument. Of course, you got guitar. I get it. Your band has guitar. That guy can burn it up. I get it. He's the dude. But to have a fantastic keyboard player laying down these landscapes of sound, behind a beautiful vocal, like Crawling Back to You on Wildflowers, stuff like that. It's just that is the sound to me of rock and roll. Bruce Springsteen, E Street Band, they got that, the big man on the sax, that's their sound. Each band has like these great weapons, and Benmont was the incredible weapon of the Heartbreakers. We're coming up on 1 year of Tom Petty being gone. He passed in October. I saw the last show, and to sit there and watch that show, no way did I ever think that was going to be the last show. That's always the constant reminder. Get out there and do something, man, because this shit goes fast. This shit goes by fast. I sat down and talked to Benmont. It was a monumental day for me, man. And I've said that over and over lately because it has been monumental to me to talk to my heroes for hours at a time and finally ask questions I've always wanted to know. And thank you, Benmont, for doing the show. It's just an honor to have you on. Before I do get into the episode, I just want to give you guys a shout out. All the great Patreon donators. I love you guys, and it's just been fantastic support lately. Let's give it up to the man. I'm going to fuck this guy's name up. Piotr Mazur. Dude, this guy's name is spelled like this. Piotr. Piotr. I don't know, man. I sound so dumb. I love you, dude. Jay Vininsky. Thank you, brother. Jay Vininsky coming to the Patreon plate. Chet Czar donating. Chet Czar, an amazing artist. Check out his Instagram. He did a bunch of stuff for Tool. Chet Czar, pretty damn cool. Thank you. If you want to donate to Patreon, it's deandelray.com. Or no, that's not it. That's my website, deandelray.com. Patreon is patreon.com/deandelray. And everything helps, man. Everything helps. I do this thing 100% free. Haven't had any ads in a while, so whatever you donate, it definitely helps in so many ways. What else we got? Oh, yeah, speaking of the Heartbreakers, Howie Epstein would have been 63 on Saturday, and that guy was another weapon in the Heartbreakers, the bass player. He could sing like a bird, and his bass playing was groove city. This guy, man, long live Howie Epstein. It was great to talk about him a little bit on the podcast here with Benmont. I want to give you a little heads up. I heard a song over the weekend that just blew my fucking mind, and it's been happening a lot lately, which is great about music. Just tons of great stuff coming out lately. But Shooter Jennings, who I had on the podcast about a year ago, I believe, has got a new record coming out. And I heard the single called Denim and Diamonds, and I think I've listened to this song already about 40 times. It's some kind of bizarre kind of country Pink Floyd. I mean, what a sound. Dave Cobb, the king producer of Nashville, responsible for so many great records. Rival Sons, of course, Wheeler Walker, all these great records he's been doing in the last few years out in Nashville. Shooter Jennings, he did Shooter's first record. And man, this song is killer. So get into that. It's on iTunes right now. And one other thing, I was talking to Benmont on the podcast about the drummer in Page Plant. And I couldn't remember his name, and then I looked it up. It's Michael Lee. And Michael Lee played on that 96 Page Plant Electric Tour, and the guy was just a monster on drums. And if you're asking, if you're wondering why I'm talking about that, we get heavily into some drum talk on this episode, Benmont and myself. I love you guys. I'll see you out there. I'm going to be in Kansas City with Joey Diaz on August 9, 10, 11. Tickets on my website, deandelray.com, at the Improv. I'm going to be with the great Bill Burr in Virginia and I think South Carolina, September 14, 15, 16. I'm going to be at the Wilbur Theater in September with Joey Diaz, September 28th, Boston, Wilbur Theater. I thank all you guys, and I can't thank you enough for all the kind words over the Rollins episodes. It was just fantastic that you guys loved it and were emailing me. So kind. Anyway, let's get into this episode. I know, I've been babbling. Let's do this. Here he is, Candles Lit for Mr. Benmont Tench. All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. This is a dream guest today. I've been trying to have you on for about a year. Introduce yourself.
I'm Benmont Tench.
God, man, you are.
I am, but I don't know. Like I'm Benmont Tench. I'm like, no, it's just me.
I think that you played in one of the greatest American rock bands of all time.
Thank you.
The Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen you. I've also opened for you guys, And it's mind-boggling how good this band was.
I know you opened for us. When was that?
Echo Tour.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I got a funny story. Well, I did the Echo Tour with you guys, Shoreline. And then I was recording a live record at the Mint, and you and Mike Campbell came.
That sounds like
years ago, and you guys came, and I had like Cheryl Crow sat in.
Oh, hell yes.
And,
Yeah.
Jim Bogus on drums, and Mark Ford from the Black Crows.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys came down.
God, I love Mark Ford.
God, how great is he?
He's fantastic.
Man.
He's a good guy. He's really terrific.
He's a great player. That's another great American band, you know.
They're a cool band. They opened for us for a tour, and I really loved it. I get along great with those guys, and I really loved them.
I was reading. First of all, you know, I always say that for the great bands, for me, they have keyboards. A B3 specifically. You know, Black Crows. You know, E Street Band. Some of that Stone stuff, you know, all that stuff. B3, Wurlitzer, you know, Fender Rhodes, all that stuff. And to me, it seems to be the extra sauce that makes a band have way more depth.
I don't know. There's some bands that can pull it off with just guitars. The Beatles could pull it off with guitars. The Rolling Stones started out with 6 guys. They had Ian Stewart. He was in the band. He played piano and he played maracas. And they fired him allegedly.
Said he was too ugly.
Yeah, they said he just didn't look right. And what a man. I mean, he stuck with them. He stuck with them anyway and played on tons of their records. He was a fantastic piano player.
Yeah.
And apparently a really, really sweet, soulful guy. I never got to meet him. But, you know, the Beatles they all played little keyboards, and George Martin was a genius at it. But I like what I do. A lot of the time I wish I was a bass player, because sometimes I think that's the thing of where it's at.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just grateful that I know how to play and that I get to do something for a living that I really, really love. And also that I was in the right town at the right place and born at the right time to, you know, like get to work with Tom and Mike and everybody, you know? I
mean, it's crazy that you actually met Tom at 11 years old.
Yeah, I may have been 12 or 13, but I don't know if I met him. I used to frequent this music store, and they would get these new organs in or whatever and all this stuff, and I'd just go hang out there and bang on the instruments and annoy the hell out of everybody. And there was 4 or 5 kids that were older than me. I was probably 12, and they were 15, so they looked really intimidating.
Yeah.
And he was the blonde one.
Yeah.
So he was one of these kids that I didn't really talk to, because they were like, you could tell they had a band. They had their hair combed down a little bit longer, like you're trying to do the Beatles, but you can't really in Florida because the humidity makes everybody's hair kink up. But his actually stayed pretty straight.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, two friends of mine said, come see this band Mudcrutch. And it was like him and Campbell and Randall Marsh and Tom Lydon. And I was like, oh, that guy. You know?
Yeah.
And that's when we started really talking and hanging.
What gets you into keyboards? I mean, is it just a thing you're doing in school, like music class, and then eventually something hits you for rock and roll? How does that happen?
Well, we had a piano at home, and my parents thought that if you were going to be like well-rounded or just a well-rounded human being, you needed to know how to play a musical instrument. And my mother had apparently played piano, though I don't remember her playing it. My father played piano and guitar, and I gravitated towards it, partly because a cousin of mine could do that chopsticks thing or something, and I couldn't, and I went, he can do everything.
Yeah.
Like, we're 7 years old, and he could throw a football, a baseball, he could do anything. Like, I'm going to do something better than him. And so I did the piano better than him. I just fell in love with it. It has been like a constant companion and friend and someone to turn to forever and ever and ever, as long as I can remember. There has been a piano that I can just walk over to the piano and have it under my hands, and even when I'm out of shape on it, if I just sit down and hit a chord, it really helps heal my soul.
Yeah.
Really helps heal my soul.
Who were your guys?
Nicky Hopkins.
Of course.
Nicky Hopkins, Booker T, Matthew Fisher from Procol Harum.
Booker T, man.
I loved the way George Martin played on the Beatles stuff. Ian Stewart from the Rolling Stones, that I didn't realize that it was Ian Stewart and Nicky Hopkins till later because I didn't always look for the credits. Everybody who ever played keyboards with the Rolling Stones was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. That's your lesson in how to play rock and roll piano in a rock and roll band. If you don't want to go back and go crazy on all the early New Orleans stuff. But also John Lord. I mean, there's a revelation in John Lord and in Garth Hudson from the band in how to play the organ. And Booker and Al Cooper, those cats can play a Hammond in a certain way that is so graceful and so lovely. But when you get to John Lord and you get to Garth Hudson, you get people who are coming at it from a very different angle. Lord's very classically trained, and his technique is astounding. But the way he thinks and the way he plays rhythm guitar on the organ, and the distortion, the tone that he has, and his ability to use it in the right way at the right time, his ability to fit in with Blackmore that way, so that you listen to some of that stuff and it's like, well, the guitar, where's the guitar? Okay, that's the guitar. No, that's the organ. That's the organ playing rhythm there. No, that's the guitar playing rhythm. Like, what the hell's going on? Just a monster. And when I realized that the Hammond that I had bought had an effects loop in it, I was doing a recording session for The Cult in 1989 or something.
The Cult?
Yeah.
Wow.
And my Hammond organ didn't distort much. And they said, can you distort it? I said, no. And they said, well, you've got an effects loop. I'm like, I do? And they gave me some kind of a turbo boost.
Wow.
A yellow one. And I plugged it in there. It's like, all right. And so every now and then I can just kind of hit that. I can't get the tone that John Lord got.
That shit he gets on Perfect Stranger at the top. Boom, dum, dum, dum.
He does a thing with his sound. And Garth Hudson from the band does a thing. It's not a Hammond, it's a Lowry. But it's not just the sound, it's the mind. It's in the hands and the heart and in the mind and in the way that you think. And anybody who's worth a damn, it's not just in the hands and the technique, it's in the mind and the soul and the heart. Because it's the imagination or the ability to channel something as free and crazy as what Garth Hudson does. There's a clip on YouTube. Usually it has Spanish subtitles of the song I Shall Be Released. And the version on the record, I think it's on the first record, is really beautiful, of course. But the version they played live around 1970 or 71 would stop you in your tracks. And it stopped me at a festival. I really needed to pee. And I was going to go like, I'll just sit this one song out and come back. And I took 2 steps and I was like, what on earth? There's a clip of that, of I Shall Be Released by the band, and Richard Manuel playing piano and singing, and Garth interlacing around it, will bring you to, it won't bring you to tears, it'll bring you to something that can't be described.
Right.
It's really, really something. Garth Hudson can channel through, I don't know where he pulls it down from. He's pulling color down from the sky and from the clouds and from everything around him and from the night. He's pulling color and melody in a way that I don't think anybody else has ever done. And I try on the Hammond a lot to find my own way of what that cat does.
I think the Hammond is the best rock and roll instrument there is, because when you really think about it, like my keyboard player's name was Ben Jacobs at the time. He would come in and we really worshiped the Heartbreakers, and he would come in and I would just have these, rock and roll songs, but when he would add the Hammond, now we sound like completely something different.
There's a way to do it. There's a way. I didn't want to play Hammond when I was young because the people that I saw around Gainesville played a certain style of Hammond that seemed old-fashioned to me. and
They're playing it like kind of churchy? Or?
Well, no, they were actually kind of playing it more jazzy, and I'm not a jazz cat.
Right.
Everybody thinks keyboard players, like, you really want to be playing jazz. Actually, no, I really want to be playing rock. I just want to be playing something good.
Yeah.
But rock and roll is what's in my heart. But the cats around there that played Hammond, I associated it with a certain kind of music that's great music, but wasn't what I wanted to do. So I played piano, and I play piano to this day. I play a lot of piano. But the Hammond, there's a way in that I really like that speaks to me. And when I realized that that instrument that I had heard that I didn't really care for, the Hammond organ, was the instrument on Booker T doing Time is Tight, and was the instrument on Procol Harum doing A Whiter Shade of Pale.
Wow.
Then I thought, oh, wait a minute. And in the Heartbreakers, we had a band called Mudcrutch first, and in Mudcrutch I played a Farfisa organ very briefly.
Kind of Doors stuff? Like clavinet, Farfisa, that 60s thing, that garage thing?
It was kind of the garage thing, but it didn't have any of the clavinet kind of stuff to it. But it was the instrument that I had, and I changed to a Wurlitzer really quickly.
The best. I think it's the best instrument.
And I put it through a Marshall.
Oh, wow.
Because I loved John Lord, and because I loved the Faces.
Oh.
And although Ian McLaughlin didn't have a distorted sound on his Wurlitzer very often, the way Ronnie Wood's guitar did that thing, that sound that Ronnie Wood had, I thought, well, maybe I can like get some of that John Lord, Ronnie Wood thing. Maybe I can emulate a guitar if I just blast this sucker through a Wurlitzer.
Right.
So in the early Mudcrutch stuff, there was that. Then I got an electric piano that actually had strings.
Fender 88 or something? Oh,
No.
those ones that have the string. I see that.
But not the ones that everybody used later. This was like some weird teaching piano made by Baldwin that nobody ever used, and it was fantastic.
Wow.
Heavy as fuck. But I didn't use an organ except on a couple of recording sessions until the Heartbreakers started playing live. I'd played a little bit on some records. On the first album, I'd played a little bit. When we started playing live, Tom thought, well, we can't do all those background vocals on Breakdown because there's like 4 voices, and our friend Phil, who sang it, sang better than I did. Do the stuff with the organ. And I went, okay, I'll see. And,
wow.
We got an organ from some band, and promptly it broke down, so we played CBGB in Manhattan in 77.
You guys played CBGBs?
In 76 or 77, we played CBGB.
Whoa, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers,
yeah,
first record.
It's very funny. And we rented a Hammond because the one we had bought broke down. The truck parked in front of CBGB with that broken down Hammond and some suitcases and everything in it was stolen while we were playing.
Oh, my God.
To separate us from people thinking that Johnny Thunders was playing.
Right.
We were billed as, since they knew we were from Florida, it was just said Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers from Miami. And we're from like an 8-hour drive from Miami.
Yeah, Gainesville, right?
Yeah, but it's like, it was pretty funny. It was actually pretty funny. I can't remember if it was a good gig or not.
What'd you guys do when your truck's stolen? You come out, it's gone?
You just aren't happy. Luckily, they didn't get. All they got was the broken down Hammond and I think the lighting guy's suitcase, because all the gear was on stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, people will steal. Campbell in Reno. Mike Campbell was playing guitar in Reno at an early gig in '78 or something, '77, '78, and he leaned over a really low stage. He leaned over during a solo, like Jimmy Page, super low slung guitar solo.
Yeah.
Some cat in the front row lifted the guitar off of him and ran for the back of the room.
Whoa. I seen that with Def Leppard on the High and Dry tour. They were opening, and Pete Willis, the guy that's not in the band now, he had an Explorer, and it had the kicked out headstock.
Yeah.
He leaned down, they
beautiful.
snatched it. It floated around the crowd while people just tore shit off of it, and then the roadies jumped in and grabbed it. It was missing the bridge and strings and everything by the time it came back.
Yeah, Campbell got his guitar back in in good condition, but the cat, I don't know what he was thinking. He's going to run for the back, and the crew is going to jump off the stage and just go like, "You're not getting out of here."
Yeah.
You know.
Dude, that's insane. He's up there just
burning on.
You got lucky or whatever.
No, we didn't even have a refugee out at that point.
Oh, yeah.
He was probably playing on Need to Know or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just gone.
It's gone. It's like, okay, well, somebody else take a solo.
That is so great.
It's crazy.
Tom and those guys got their guitar stolen about 3 years ago, I remember. And then Norm and Mark brought down the same exact guitars, and then they got them back a couple days later. That was crazy.
Yeah, security guard at a rehearsal place, at a soundstage. I mean, what are you thinking? Who's the first cat they're going to look at? Who's got the keys to the room once they lock it up? The security guy.
God.
And apparently he had taken some really not very valuable reproductions and left some guitars that were worth a fortune and just grabbed what he could. And then he'd taken some guitars that were worth a fortune down to a pawn shop and asked for the pawnbroker for $300 or something.
Yeah.
And the pawnbroker just called the police and said, something's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got him back fast.
God, it's so great. Stolen gear's the worst.
It's not nice. Stealing isn't nice.
When you guys are rolling down there in Gainesville, was Billy Powell a guy that you were into, or were you just did you look at him as like you weren't really into his style, or what's going? Because I always felt that he was a heavy piano player that really made that Skinner sound.
Billy Powell was a great piano player.
He was.
But when I joined Mudcrutch or first started sitting in with him, I saw him, and then I was in college. I saw them at the end of, like I was about to graduate boarding school. And then in college, I would sit in with them when I had a weekend off or there was a break or the summer or whatever. And they'd do this thing at the time where they'd go up, and if it was Jacksonville, they'd open for Skynyrd. If it was Gainesville, Skynyrd would open for them.
Oh, wow.
So I saw Skynyrd a few times, like once they played the University Auditorium, and we were playing the Rathskeller at the university. So we watched Skynyrd play the auditorium, then we go over and do the Rathskeller. But I didn't really focus on them. I didn't focus on Billy. I don't remember focusing on Billy at all. I remember Skynyrd as just this guitar thing.
Yeah, right.
And very unique.
Yeah.
Very unique. But the cats I was listening to were the English guys, or after I went to college in New Orleans, and got turned on to Professor Longhair and all of that stuff, I was diving into, all those cats.
I love that you're a heavy John Lord guy, I mean, I feel like a lot like you, he's underrated, These guys are the secret weapon of these bands. Just drop that shit out. If you take a mix and drop out you or John Lord, it's a totally different band.
Well, John Lord's no secret weapon. John Lord is the weapon. I mean, Blackmore is astounding, but that thing that Lord does, I don't think, you can't talk to a keyboard player or probably anybody who plays rock and roll who doesn't know the value of John Lord.
Of course. I'm just saying an average person, they always like, Richie Blackmore, and it's like, yeah, but what about...
Guitar players, they're going to go, the guitar player, the singer, the drummer.
Yeah.
And of course, because it looks great. And the keyboard player's behind the keyboard. And Keith Emerson started turning it over and, stabbing it with knives. And before that, Little Richard was going absolutely crazy, and I think Jerry Lee Lewis, did he take a Coke bottle out of kerosene onto a gig where I heard some story that Jerry Lee Lewis at some point wanted to close the show. He was on a bill with Chuck,
right?
Chuck Berry, and that Chuck wanted to close the show, and Chuck won the contest and got to close the show, and that it's probably apocryphal, but that what Jerry did was he went out and he played a set with this Coke bottle on the piano. The Coke bottle was full of kerosene, and the story was that at the end of the set, he poured the kerosene on the piano, lit the piano on fire, walked off the stage to Chuck Berry in the wings and said, "Top that."
That's the Hendrix Who thing at Monterey.
Yeah, that's the Hendrix Who thing at Monterey, but 10 years before.
Yeah, but 10 years before, that's amazing. I never even heard that.
I don't know if it's true.
Wow.
But, you could do things to get noticed. Jerry Lee Lewis could get noticed. Little Richard could get noticed. There were cats that would get noticed. And then the Vox Continental came along, and they restreamed the way that instruments looked, and you'd have something where you could look good behind the thing, but...
I really love this.
People remember guitar players.
I love the sound of the Vox Continental. That is the Doors sound.
Well, the Doors, I think they used the Continental, but they used some kind of Gibson that sounded like a Farfisa on a lot of that stuff, apparently. But the Vox Continental, the Animals, House of the Rising Sun, that stuff.
Wow.
Alan Price. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The thing is, those instruments can sound nasty and they can sound mean, and in the right hands they can sound smooth or soulful, and they never sound artificial.
Yeah,
they never sound artificial. In the right hands, they don't sound artificial.
That's on the Use Me Up, dum dum down at the bum 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 ba down down.
Yeah, that's a clavinet.
That's clavinet.
I think that's a Hohner clavinet.
I love that sound.
That's a great sound, and that James Gasson on drums, just astounding.
Sick.
Yeah, a really sweet guy, that cat.
You ever see that footage? I've only seen it once, and I think it was on an early James Brown documentary that I can't seem to find now. Somebody was telling me to ask me where it was, and I can't find it now. But there was a time in, I think, 70, 71 where James Brown was playing B3.
Oh, yeah, he still does.
On
he's
stage,
gone now,
he would
James.
roll over and just start rocking it.
I saw James play the Ryman Auditorium.
Oh, I just did the Ryman. I love it.
This is one of the best rooms in the world.
It's insane, right?
It's incredible. It's magic. But I saw James Brown. I was there hanging with my friend Gary Nicholson. He said, James Brown's at the Ryman tonight. This is like 20 years ago or something.
And you just happened to be in Nashville?
Yeah, I was in Nashville because I used to go there and try to write songs, and I burned out on that version of writing, like that way of writing, which works for some people and didn't for me. But Gary says, James Brown at the Ryman. I'm like thinking he can't be good anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, but I'm not going to miss it. And we went. He was really good. He had 3 bass players.
3 bass players?
2 drummers, 3 bass players. There was a Hammond up there and a DX7. He must have had a guy playing the Hammond. So the bass players, there'd be 2 playing at once, and another one would come in and spell the other guy. But at one point, one of the bass players kind of sneaks off the stage. I'm like, what's that? He's going to get a cigarette break or something. And then
cigarette break.
James goes over to play the DX7, and the DX7 doesn't work. And I'm grateful because I don't like those things.
Yeah.
So he goes behind the Hammond and plays the Hammond. And the early James Brown records, there are Hammond instrumentals.
Absolutely. It's him on the records.
Yeah.
Wow.
On some of it.
Wow.
And there are instrumentals where it's James, I believe. And so he goes back and starts playing the Hammond, and it was really cool. And then a guy in a magician's outfit who looks suspiciously like the bass player that sneaked off the stage comes in from the wings with an assistant who's a woman in like red, white, and blue cutoffs, that kind of thing, that living in America look.
Apollo Creed.
And that whole deal. And she's got the magician's table, the small tray that they do tricks on, and she's bringing that out. And he's with kind of a sheepish look on his face while James burns it up on an instrumental solo on the organ. He's kind of doing this thing where, you take a copy of USA Today and you hold it up and you show it to everybody, and then you fold it into little bitty pieces and you tear it up, and then, you've torn up USA Today, but then you open your palm and there's the USA Today, and it's restored. Yeah. He's doing that kind of magic trick.
While James is burning it up?
During the James Brown show. But James was really good. He sang fantastic. He danced fantastic. The band was a good band. They were a good, tight band. And it was no bullshit. But as I recollect, the DX7 didn't work. James played the organ, and the other bass player came out and did some magic tricks.
God, that's crazy shit.
He was pretty good. It was crazy as hell.
You got your money's worth there. You got magic. You got soul.
James Brown.
You got James Brown
singing like James Brown and dancing like James Brown. Man, what more do you need?
I was obsessed with that Love Power Peace record.
I don't know the Love Power Peace.
That's the live in Paris, and I think it's 72.
Yeah.
It's Bootsy and his brother.
Oh yeah.
And then, it's just, they got the Hammond on that is incredible.
But the thing that I always love on records to this day, I like the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And that's the thing for me is like the rhythm section. I like the song, and I like the the groove. I like the rhythm section.
Yeah.
So drummers I am in awe of, and they drive me crazy if I don't like the way they play. I'm really kind of like insane about that stuff.
I am too. It changed the whole sound.
Well, the thing is, like, the groove, you look at a band that's really huge internationally, and people will sometimes they'll go, Ringo Starr, luckiest guy in the world, he got that job. Ringo Starr, best drummer in Liverpool, one of the best drummers in the world, incredible, staggeringly great groove, really inventive, all of this shit, and a cat who obviously grew up listening to the great rock and roll drummers like Earl Palmer, who played on the Little Richard stuff and then moved to California and played apparently more sessions than anybody alive.
Wow.
Like, so the deep shit, Ringo had that, Charlie Watts had that, Keith Moon in his own way had that.
Stan Lynch had that.
Stan Lynch had that. It all goes back to
It's that swing.
It's that swing. It all goes back to the black drummers in New Orleans, because rock and roll is black music.
Yeah.
It is black music. And the white people that came in like Elvis and threw their spin into it took it somewhere else and made it into something really glorious and beautiful. But it started out, that shit comes from New Orleans. That shit comes from New Orleans.
How long did it take you to, because to me, Stan Lynch is one of the greatest groove drummers of all time.
He's wonderful.
I mean, that stuff, a lot of that petty shit, when it's just driving and rocking, Yeah. You think you're going to take away.
Oh, yeah.
That is just Stan Lynch just laying it down.
But here's the deal with Stanley. He didn't pound the drums. He could hit them hard.
His finesse.
He could hit them hard, and he would, but he didn't just pound them. Stanley loved the Faces, but he really loved Simon Kirke.
Wow.
From Free and Bad Company.
Yeah. Oh, Free.
Like, he really loved Simon Kirke. And he probably still does. And he and I, well, the whole band, we're cats from the South. The original band was all from Gainesville. And you grew up, the local radio would play the pop hits or whatever, but there'd be sneaky stuff from around the area. And there's just a groove. And also, we really loved what came out of Stax, Volt. Like, the record I listened to and learned a hell of a lot of is this 2 LP Wilson Pickett's Greatest Hits.
Oh, God.
And it's the Stax Studio stuff with Cropper and everybody. And it's also the Fame Studios and Muscle Shoals Sound and all the great cats down there.
Yeah.
And we studied, how do they do that? They pull it back. They don't rush it. It's got a lot. It's not. We didn't study it intellectually, but we listened to it and went, that's great. Let's try to pull that off. So we came out of that tradition. And to me, all the great rock and roll bands that I resonate with, like, there are great rock and roll bands that don't have this feature, but I don't resonate with them. The ones that I resonate with go back to black music. It's like they hear what's up with Al Jackson. They hear what's up with Earl Palmer, or I think the guy's name is Hungry Williams, or any of these cats that you may not know their names, the people on the Howlin' Wolf records. All these guys that have this deep groove, this deep swing, whether they're white or black, they're coming from that. And Stanley was going for the swing, for the light groove, for the swing, and he was really, really good. He also knew songs. He could write songs.
Yeah, he could.
And he would listen and had a really good instinct for the tailoring and everything up and down of the song. He's really a wonderful drummer. And
that had to take you a while to, when Steve comes in, it had to be like, it's such a different feel.
It was a crazy year because it's a very different feel. And Steve is absolutely brilliant drummer. Steve is a mind-blowing drummer. And if you want
just different. Very
different. If you want to hear a mind-blowingly great drum record, get the Cut the Cake album by The Average White Band.
Right.
Like Ferroni on that, he's just a god. It's very, very different. But it resonated with Tom. And it resonated with Mike, resonated with Rick Rubin, and Wildflowers was ostensibly a solo record, though
exactly.
At the end of the day, it's not really. But it started out intending to be one, and by the end, it's us. With Steve instead of Stanley. And it was a lot of adjustment, but not just that. I did kind of a double whammy. I quit smoking.
Yeah.
and Stanley got fired.
Wow.
And Stanley was one of my best friends
Wow.
in the world.
Wow.
Like we put the band together.
Were you
Right.
bummed?
I was very bummed. I mean, I love Steve, and I loved Steve, and he's a great drummer, and he's a great guy, and he's one of my best friends. But the change was really wild. It was
And you don't
wild
really
to go through. So, quitting smoking and like my Stan and Howie were my best friends in the band, and one of my best friends being gone from the band, I broke out in shingles at the beginning of that tour because
Wow.
quitting smoking is not a joke.
Nope.
Holy moly! But yeah, I'm friends with Stanley. I mean, I hit him back on email every 6 weeks or so and see what's going on.
When
Always was.
when Stan's out, you don't. Of course, he gets fired, and then Tom's doing the Wildflowers record, so you don't even. You're not even really around when Tom's making a decision. Is he auditioning drummers, or they just
no.
they just brought that guy in?
The way it worked was the band wasn't breaking up. Nothing was going on. Tom wanted to make a record with Rick Rubin. I think they wanted to make a solo record.
Right.
But then they wanted to use me and Mike and different bass player and different drummer. And so we tried a couple of drummers.
Who were they? Because
I don't even remember. They were great. I remember everybody was great.
Right.
But it was a matter of who clicked. And they brought Steve in. And Steve, like the first thing we did with Steve may have been, You Don't Know How It Feels. And it may have been like take 2 or 3 as soon as Rick Rubin said, don't play any crash cymbals. Bang, you got the take. And, everybody's like, this cat's great. He works. But the stuff that, I think Bob Glaude played a little bass on that. Somebody else played a little bass. But other than that, it's Tom or Mike on bass until Howie came in, and then Howie started playing bass.
Yeah.
So it isn't like Tom went off with Rick and started a record. I was always there for the record.
Got ya.
And there had been like tension between Tom and Stan for decades.
Yeah, of
But
course.
what the hell have you got? You got brothers, you got love, hate. You're always going to have that. I don't know the root of the tension. I don't understand it. I never understood it. I respect that Tom had his reasons. And if you're leading a band, you got to play with somebody who you feel like this is working for me. But I know that Stan, Jimmy Iovine tried to get rid of Stan on Damn Torpedoes and Long After Dark. Stanley was gone for like a week or something on each of those while we tried different drummers who were great. Nothing worked. And as soon as we got Stanley back in, we'd get like 2 tracks.
Wow.
And so there's a chemistry thing.
100%.
There's just a chemistry thing.
100%. It's, if you look at it over the years, it's like AC/DC, Phil Rudd out. Then it's
Exactly.
different. Steven Adler, Guns N' Roses.
Exactly.
The drummers are
Or The Who.
Yeah.
Like Kenny Jones is one of the great rock and roll drummers.
Right.
He's just fantastic. And they make good records with Kenny Jones, but it's not the same.
No.
Now, Zach Starkey with The Who,
Unbelievable.
that's incredible.
Unbelievable.
And who taught him how to play? Keith.
Yeah.
That
guy kills. You know who was amazing? I don't know if you saw the Page Plant tour, the Electric tour.
No.
They had this kid. This guy was unbelievable, man. And I was like floored. So,
Yeah.
it's really tough. I always tell people because I went through multiple drummers, and when you have a different drummer, you're like, you have to learn how to play with that drummer.
You do. But one thing that's like, I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging Ferroni at all, because Ferroni's fantastic. The thing is that it really would have made no sense if Tom's going to change drummers to get somebody who played like Stan.
Right.
Because keep Stanley.
Right.
Know? So they went an entirely different direction. And for years, Tom and Mike had been working, they really liked the drum machine stuff. And sometimes we'd do a record where Campbell would program the drum machine, the track would be the drums, would be a drum machine that Campbell had programmed every now and then on a limb machine, because Campbell's a genius with programming drum machines. Just a few times, but they really liked this thing. And Jeff Lynne really likes this straight up and down, boom, pop, bap. If you
Right.
listen to a Jeff Lynne produced record, a lot of the time it's just the one and the three, the kick and the snare, the one and the three, and the kick and the snare. And it's really strict time. Really strict time. And Stanley was not the cat who played like that or aspired to. Ferroni, if you sit down with Ferroni and say, do this, Ferroni goes, oh, this? Boom, bap. And he slams it, and he just drives it, and he does all that kind of thing. And if that's what, if that's what makes you go like, this feels good for me to play to, then that's what you should do. But it did. It was a very big difference. It is a very big difference.
Especially when you see the band live.
What I want to say is, like, the drummer, like, Larry Mullen that's a huge part of the sound of U2.
Big time.
The Beatles without Ringo, that's an entirely different sounding band. And sometimes Paul plays drums, and he's got a similar groove. He's from the same town, drank the same water. But it's not the same. The Rolling Stones, every now and then, somebody like Kenny Jones, speak of the devil, plays on the song It's Only Rock and Roll. He plays great. It's Kenny Jones and Willie Weeks on bass. Fantastic. But essentially, those bands that make it, that get somewhere, they have a great drummer.
That's what I say every time.
Fleetwood Mac?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Like, good Lord, speaking of Deep Purple, there's a rhythm section.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic rhythm section. And the deal is they swing. They all swing. Phil Rudd in AC/DC, he swings. He's not just playing, toom, toom. He's not some strict time. There's a groove going on in that cat's head. There's a swinging groove going on his head. And I've played a little bit with Ringo. He played drums on a song or two for Wildflowers. And I've played on a couple of his solo records. And it's a privilege. But one time, I'm playing on a track, and I'm overdubbing. And he just kind of leans over to me and goes, don't forget to swing.
Wow.
And that's the whole thing. Don't forget to swing. Also, I think that same track I had stopped in mid take. Like, I'm overdubbing. The tape is just playing. The track's all there. The groove is all there. I don't remember which song it was, but it was swinging so hard that over the music playing really super loud, I turned to him and I went, you really are the greatest fucking drummer in the world. Because the swing was so, oh my God. It was astounding.
That's amazing.
Just astounding. So these cats, Ringo Starr, Jim Keltner, Levon Helm, Stan Lynch,
Jim Keltner, dude. I mean, that guy, his sound, when he gets on the kit, you go, oh, that's Jim Keltner.
Keltner, yeah. And Keltner's he's a wonderful human being. These are all great human beings too. James Gadsden, like I said, who played on the Bill Withers stuff and lots of other great stuff. Not all the Bill Withers stuff, but I think Use Me Up is him. And some of that. Did Al Jackson do the first album? No, I think it's all Gadsden. I'd have to look it up. I thought it was Al Jackson on some of it. But all these cats, and they're all good cats. Like, if you meet Charlie Watts, he's a sweetheart. If you meet Ringo Starr, he's a good cat. If you meet Ferroni, he's one of the greatest human beings alive.
Right.
Lynch is a wonderful, wonderful cat. All these guys.
Where is Stan?
Stan's in Florida. He lives in Florida.
Does he do anything?
He never didn't have a place in Florida.
He never played again, though, right?
He produced some records. He produced, like, a bunch of Don Henley's solo stuff.
Right, I know that. But I mean, as far as
he produced some of the Eagles stuff, like some of the stuff, and he wrote stuff, a lot of stuff with Henley. He was writing in Nashville for a while and wrote some, like, country songs that went to number one. And I believe the last thing that I heard of his is he wrote a song with Rita Coolidge, and she cut a song that he'd written by himself on her new record. So Stanley's still around.
But it's so weird that
he didn't join another band.
Yeah, I would have grabbed that guy in a minute if I was like famous band looking for a drummer.
Yeah, me too.
Holy shit.
Me too, but he may not have wanted to.
Yeah.
He may not have wanted to.
Yeah.
He may have gone like 20 years in a band to see what else there is to do, maybe produce, maybe write, that kind of thing. I don't really know.
Yeah, you don't talk to him much anymore?
I talk to him when I can. I usually wind up emailing him.
Right.
He's hard to get on the phone.
Yeah.
But I think the last time I emailed him was a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
Because I heard some old stuff that we hadn't released, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, it was so good.
You guys,
And I had to just like write him and say, dude, you know.
yeah. You guys, man, I mean, that band is, it's insane. When you guys are early on and you're out touring, what is basically your live rig where you have the B3, yeah, like a Fender Rhodes, a Whirly and
I
stuff?
don't use a Rhodes because I can't play Rhodes. I sound like bad cocktail jazz on a Rhodes.
Oh, got ya. So
I
what are
just
you
can't
out there
pull it
with
off.
early on? And you're carrying all that shit.
Early on, yeah, because we didn't want to use
House stuff.
a fake bad piano. Well, no, early on, the promoter was supposed to provide a piano.
Oh, wow.
And we would carry an electric piano, an ARP string ensemble, and a Wurlitzer. And the first tour, I think the first tour, yeah, they were supposed to provide the piano. So, and I would have the string ensemble sitting on top of the piano. And so we show up at a club in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and they've given me an upright piano.
Upright?
And how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
We wound up strapping it vertically
Yeah.
with a bunch of duct tape.
Wow.
You know, to the front of the upright piano. So I'm kind of playing like some kind of bizarre upright hand.
Almost
position.
Devo shit. Yeah.
It was almost Devo shit. Who did I see was talking about Devo recently? Was it you? Were you a Devo fan?
I'm a huge Devo fan.
Man.
I love them.
Man.
One of my top 5.
No kidding.
One of my top 5.
No kidding. They thought like them.
Oh.
They really thought like them. And Alan, the way he played the drums,
Oh.
it was unique.
They said he
But
was a
it
human
had
metronome.
groove, but it had its own Devo groove. And I'd heard about them. And Elliot Roberts was co-managing us at the time. And I think he may have been managing Devo. But there was a big thing about this band Devo, and I went to see them at the Starwood when the Starwood used to be there at the corner of Crescent Heights and Santa Monica Boulevard. Man, they were so cool.
Oh, you ever
They
see
were
that shit
so
they did
cool.
with Neil Young?
I saw a little bit of that.
Oh, it's incredible. They did a film. They did music and shit. That's all Elliot putting that
That's
together.
all Elliot put in
And-
that. Well, not necessarily.
Well, I mean, Neil.
because
He did that trans record.
Neil, that's probably not Elliot putting it together. It's probably Neil seeing Devo, maybe because of Elliot.
Right.
But Neil going, what the hell? Because Neil's going to think, he's going to think sharp about that. The Starwood was really cool because before the Heartbreakers, Stanley and I went down to, we may have started making the Heartbreakers record, but I'm not even sure. Stanley and I went to the Starwood because he knew somebody and we could get in because we didn't have any money. We didn't know anybody. He looked like a rock star always, Stanley,
Yeah.
from day one. And I'm like trying to like look like I'm something. And so we go to the Starwood because there's some new band called Cheap Trick.
Oh, wow.
And they hadn't put their record out yet. Maybe it was a record release party. I don't know what it was. But we had no idea. It was just we can get into the Starwood and get drunk or whatever. Cheap Trick. If you're just hit by the side of the head by walking into a club not knowing what to expect and Cheap Trick walks out.
Yeah. They're incredible.
Fuck.
Incredible. I've seen them on many tours. The Dream Police, the All Shook Up,
Well, this is the first record, so
Yeah,
they're
first
doing all
record.
of that stuff.
that shit.
My God, we were just so happy, me and Stanley. We were like, wait a minute, there's hope for the future, you know?
When you guys land in L.A., when you first get the deal and shit, what neighborhood you in?
We lived at the Hollywood Premier Hotel or something on Hollywood Boulevard for a few weeks or for a month, which was really not a nice hotel then. I hope it's better now. But it was all the record company would do for us. And they treated us great, but, like, it was a small independent label. They didn't have a big budget.
Right.
So we were at the Hollywood Premier, I think it was called. And then they got us a couple of houses to live in amongst us in Canoga Park.
Canoga Park. Way the fuck out there.
Way the fuck on Shoup and Sherman Way. In the extreme heat of the valley, in the smog days of Los Angeles, when it's called the Valley, and I know we're in the Valley, but we were there for over a month before I knew that there were mountains at the north end of the valley, because although we're pretty far north, The smog was so bad that you couldn't see the mountains at the other end of the valley, not even a hint of them.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
And Canoga Park is so not rock. It's not even L.A.
No.
You got to think, like, where the fuck are we?
It was an alien experience to be in L.A. It was very, very weird. It still is to this day. I was thinking about it when I was driving down here and coming down Laurel Canyon, just Hollywood, and remembering Hollywood when we first got here. And then after that band broke up, when I was trying to find somebody else to play with after Mudcrutch broke up, because Petty was making a solo record and he had taken Campbell with him, but Randall Marsh and I had been like, okay, now what are we going to do?
Wow.
And I auditioned for different bands around in this area.
Anybody that went on later to be something?
No, I don't think so. There was a band called Christopher Milk that was a rock critic, and they were strange, but it wasn't my thing. And the most interesting one was I saw an ad, and I needed to play something, and there was a musical.
Yeah.
And it said Elvis in Bondage. And Elvis was still alive.
Yeah.
It was a few years before he died. And I'm thinking, somebody's got a musical called Elvis in Bondage. Let's go check this out.
Yeah.
So I go down to audition to like play in the house band or whatever. And no, it was a misprint. It was Elves in Bondage, and it was some kind of musical about Santa Claus. And I'm like, no, I'm out. and I wound up in a band in Altadena. There was a record company, tiny label, and they were looking for somebody to play with one of their acts for like a band to put together. And the deal was, we have a house band that makes our 45s. And if you're good enough in the road band, maybe you graduate to the studio band.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that's like Stax Records. That's like Booker T and the MGs. That's what I'll try to do, because there was no band that I wanted to play with that didn't have Tom Petty and Mike Campbell in it. There wasn't any band. Like, I hadn't seen a songwriter who could write like that. I didn't resonate with anybody. I saw bands around. I saw bands on TV. I saw all of that. I did not relate to anybody except maybe the New York Dolls and the MC5, right?
Right.
And Mott the Hoople. But I liked the pre-glam Mott the Hoople, so, that's not even happening. So I wind up in this soul band, and one of the cats, who was a cousin of one of the singers, I can't remember, it may have been Frankie Beverly. It was somebody who was just the kid that, we'll let our little cousin or our little brother open the show for this band that didn't get anywhere, though they were pretty good. And he turned out to be a cat who went on and played the Forum and stuff like that. The kid who they love, we'll indulge him and let him open.
Wow, who was it?
I can't remember. Somebody told me it was Frankie Beverly from Frankie Beverly and Maze, but I'm not sure that's who it was. It was a long time ago. So I was thinking about that when I was driving over here, how strange Los Angeles is and was. And back then, you come out here in a rock band, and there is no form for being in a rock band, and there's no business classes for it, and there has been a template in the path forged by people who had come out. Bernie Ledden from the Eagles, the Ledden family was a Gainesville family, California to Gainesville, so everybody knew Bernie Ledden. His brother Tom was in Mudcrutch before me, and then when we put it back together, and there was a thing, Bernie Ledden went west, went back to California where the Leddens had been from. So you go west.
Yeah.
But that was kind of all the template. You didn't have, like, MTV. You didn't know what... Nobody made the rock faces. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because as soon as MTV showed up, everybody made a rock face. It's like, this is the face you make when
when you're rocking.
When you're rocking. This is your rock face. Whereas before, it's kind of... I think it happened naturally.
I always loved that about you, because you seemed to have no rock face at all. It was great. You would just be looking, and it looked like you were just listening and going, I got this.
I'm focusing, man.
You are
I'm
totally focused on stage.
I'll rock back. If I really like the groove, I'll kind of rock back and forth like a slow motion headbanger.
Yeah.
Which looks kind of silly, but it's like, hey, too bad. It's how I feel.
Yeah.
But I'm mainly just listening. I can't even see because I'm listening. I'm watching. Stanley's cymbals were lower, so I could keep good eye contact with Stanley. Ferrone's cymbals are higher. It's harder to get eye contact with Stanley. So I'm watching Tom like a hawk. I'm just watching. My eyes are on. I have looked at Tom Petty more than anybody has ever looked
Yeah.
at Tom Petty.
Are you looking at him because he's throwing audibles? Because
I'm
mean, you
looking
guys
at him because if you're playing with somebody and you're blessed with the ability to see,
Yeah.
you just connect every possible way you can. Now, you don't have to be able to look at somebody to play.
Of course.
But if you can watch somebody, I can read the dynamic really well. I can read the time better. Plus, he was such an entertaining cat to watch.
Yeah.
He didn't do big showbiz things, and he didn't run over the stage like Bruce Springsteen. I mean, he ran for a while, but then he just kind of got more focused on staying in place. But there was something about the guy that was really, really compelling.
Yeah.
So it was really enjoyable to watch, and I loved the music. But if I watched him, I could really be in on it. And Campbell I check in with all the time.
Yeah.
And Campbell and me are like, we don't use in-ears, and it's good because we talk to each other.
Oh, wow. You don't use in-ears.
We come over and talk to each other.
Did Tom use in-ears?
I think he used one.
Right. Yeah. I was at the infamous, and this is one of the, I've seen the band, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 times.
Yeah.
And I was at the infamous Fillmore tear gas show.
Oh, really? Yeah, it was pepper spray.
Yeah, pepper spray. So I played upstairs, and then Wildflowers play open,
Yeah.
and then you guys.
Yeah.
So I was on the bill in the upstairs
Yeah,
room.
yeah.
And I saw exactly what went down. And it was one of the most incredible things, because what reminded me of is you saying you're looking at Tom and stuff. There was a woman, there was two guys getting ready to fight.
Yeah.
On your side.
Uh-huh.
And as they're getting ready to fight, the guy punched the guy, and then the woman broke out some pepper spray, and she sprayed the guy.
Right.
And the cap broke off, and the whole bottle unleashed.
Really?
Now, this particular day was a
okay.
weird day in San Fran where it was like 100 degrees
Yeah,
out. So it was hot in there.
burning.
And they had the fans were cooking, and the
And it
fans...
spread the whole thing.
It grabbed that pepper spray and shot it all around the venue. And I remember exactly what Tom said. You guys are playing, like, let's just say you're playing, like, breakdown. It's like, dun, dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. And all of a sudden he goes, there's something in the air. And you got, and as soon as he said that, my throat started burning.
Oh, no, I started burning already. I'm like, what the hell is this?
My throat, like I couldn't breathe, and people were falling and stuff. And you
Yeah.
guys all left the stage. He goes, we're going to figure this out. We'll be back. And then we all went out on the street, and they emptied the room and let it air out. They figured out what happened. And then we all came back in about 30 minutes later, and the show picked it back up.
Oh, yeah, of course, of
It was
course.
incredible. Now, if that would have happened in the last 5 years or so, you would have thought, it's like terrorist attack.
Yeah, you would.
Absolutely,
Yeah, you
man.
would.
But that was a wild night, and that
was
was
crazy.
the first.
It was the first
run-
night.
Yeah, and it was the first run of when you guys were doing the long
Yeah,
runs.
when we were there for a month.
Yeah, and it was. I got all the posters. They're right over there. In my,
It was the better run. The second run wasn't as good. It
I
was
believe
okay,
that too.
but the first run was really good. That was really magic and transformative, and it was really wonderful. And it really, to me, brought Ferroni into the band. Like, you're in the deep end. We're going to play up. It wound up some nights we play 3 hours. We're going to do a few different songs every night.
Yeah.
We're going to do, by the end, we're going to do a lot of different songs every night. We're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of shit that you have never heard because there's already 10 or 12 albums out, and you're going to go in the deep end,
Yeah.
and we're going in. And plus, we're going to do semi-acoustic broken down versions of Wildflowers,
Right.
and back up, Carl Perkins or, John Lee Hooker or whoever.
Yep.
So it was really cool. It was a really good forming experience.
Yeah,
for
and
them.
great openers. Like Lucinda opened.
It was insane.
Yeah, it was insane, and it was weird. I lived about 2 blocks from there.
Frank Black opened.
Yeah. So it was
Frank Black, Iris DeMint,
Yeah.
John Lee Hooker, the Wallflowers, Jackson Brown, on and on and on and on.
Insane.
And you were upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was playing
yeah.
upstairs.
Uh-huh, yeah.
In between sets.
Yeah.
Hilarious. And I lived a couple blocks away. So here's Tom Petty in my neighborhood for a month. My favorite band, and I'm down there just like, and they were fucking festive nights, man.
It was beautiful.
It was incredible.
It was really beautiful. And so we lived at the Miyako for a month.
Yeah. Oh, that's
You
a
know?
great place.
Yeah. So we lived at the Miyako for a month and just kind of wandered around if we had a day off. And it was magic. That was a really,
magic.
really magic thing.
It really was magic. The Wildflowers record, there was a lot of talk about 2 years ago that it was an actual double record, and at the time the label didn't want to put out a double record, so there's this whole other record, and Tom was thinking about doing maybe a full Wildflowers tour of both records. I know some of the stuff made it on She's the One, but
I'm not sure exactly what's coming of all of that, but yes, there was enough for a double CD. I don't know if it was the label. I don't know if Tom and Rick sequenced it and went, this is too long. I don't know why.
Right.
But everything we recorded didn't come out, and there was a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was great. Some of it did come out on She's the One, like Hung Up and Overdue, which is the other song that Ringo played on,
Right.
which is one of my favorite things ever. So I'm not sure exactly when and if and how that is going to come out. But
yeah, I kept hearing double vinyl, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God. Because some of those outtakes...
well, actually, the vinyl that came out back in the day,
Right.
I believe it is a double vinyl. But
Right.
the truth is that the vinyl that came out in the day came out in Europe and was mastered from the CD.
Oh,
so
terrible.
until the box set of the remasters to vinyl came out in the last year or so, you couldn't get Wildflowers mastered from tape to vinyl.
Oh.
And when they remastered it for this box set, I don't know why, but when Rick had it mastered originally, and people use it as a standard in studios, I've seen it countless times,
Oh,
so
God,
like
yeah.
as just for sound, but Rick mastered it very, 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 very bright. And I didn't like the mastering job that wound up being done on Wildflowers. It never sounded like what we made.
Right.
And it's wonderful, and it's powerful, and it's great, and obviously Rick had a point, and he did the right thing in his way.
Right.
But if you get the vinyl that came out vinyl from tape, you get what it sounded like when we made it, to me. And it's infinitely superior. It's not remixed. It's more like,
Just remastered.
if people don't know what mastering is, it's kind of a fancy version of turning the bass and treble up.
Right.
And adjusting the volume of things and like that. But it's not, the guitar isn't louder, the vocal isn't different, the drums aren't quieter. None of this stuff's been done to it. But when you master a record differently, it sounds different, and it sounds just wonderful to me, the vinyl. So it'd be nice. I hope that they do everything,
Yeah. I mean, some of those extra tracks that landed on She's the One are incredible.
They're wonderful. They're
Oh,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Really, like what are you going to do? I hope you never.
Yeah.
Like Hope You Never is on She's the One, right?
Yeah.
It's not on Wildflowers.
It's
How
crazy.
come that wasn't on Wildflowers?
It's so nuts, right?
And there's a lot of stuff that didn't even come out at all that I'm just kind of like, how come that not even on this giant box set we did called Playback? It's like there's stuff that's like, how come this didn't come out? But I don't know, And if I'd asked him back then, he would have had some like sarcastic response or just ignored me,
Yeah. Yeah. What was it like working with Rick? Are you a fan of him? Because I know some
Big
people
fan.
think Rick doesn't do anything, and other people say Rick brings vibe and stuff. But every record Rick's done, I think is incredible. So I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Even right now, the Avett Brothers record is mind-boggling.
I used to work with Rick all the time, and I haven't worked with him for at least 5 years.
Right.
But the thing is, on Wildflowers, Rick was there every day. Rick would break down the drum part. Rick would get into it, tell Tom, rewrite that bridge. Rick would say, that's exactly right, but he didn't play anything. And you go, I don't know what the note is. I have no idea, but I know that note there is wrong. Can you do a different note? Rick was really, really present. Wildflowers and Echo, and She's the One. And when I worked with him on the Johnny Cash stuff, when Cash was around, when he was there, Rick was always there, and the first several that I worked on, Cash was always there. Then sometimes we would cut a track and Cash would sing, but Cash would be there while we cut the track. Later on, after Johnny Cash passed away, I would go over to Rick's house in Hollywood where he had his studio with Dave Ferguson, the recording engineer, and Rick might not be there because there would be a lot of stuff to overdub on. Even before Cash passed away, during the overdub phase at the end, if you want to layer things on, long before Johnny Cash passed away, sometimes Rick wouldn't be there for the overdubs. What he would do is he would leave notes that would say, mellotron flutes on this bridge, wait until the second verse, play this part simply, this on the piano, like extreme detailed notes.
Wow.
He would also trust me, but he was never like the guy that just kind of phones in, ever. Now, I know that when he was working on She's the One or something, I think he was doing a Slayer record at the same time or something wild like that? I don't know how they felt about him leaving the studio to come work with us.
Yeah.
Because he was there all night with us. But
I mean, everything he did, Dixie Chicks, Slayer, you know, I mean, it's all different types of music, and it's all incredible, everything.
I'm a big fan of Rick's.
Yeah, I am too.
Absolutely.
The Echo record, I really believe, which is unfortunate that it's like Howie's last run, but I think the Echo record is one of the greatest Heartbreaker records because it's super, super dark.
I think that it's a really good record. I think that it's got 2 or 3 too many songs.
Right.
Every time I put it on, I'd take off a different 2 or 3 songs.
Oh, yeah, it's 15 songs.
And I think that it doesn't flow because of that. But I think that there's some of our most powerful work on it. And I think there's some of his best songs. He wasn't in good shape either during Echo, Tom.
I know.
Howie, it's always Howie this and Howie that. And Howie was in worse shape than anybody. Tom went through a phase where he was not in good shape. But Howie Epstein was my best friend.
Yeah.
Was my absolute bloody best friend. And I knew that Howie wasn't like a saint. But Howie was a really good fucker. And Howie was not fucked up for the bulk of his time in the band. It was only the last couple of years. And
what was that from? Like, did
heroin.
He have some I know, but did he have some demons? Like,
I don't know, because he seemed pretty level to me. I think that shit, you can't just dabble in that stuff.
Nope.
You can't. Some people survive it. Keith Richards survived it. I know people who survived it. William Burroughs survived it, all that kind of stuff. Although I think Burroughs may have kept doing it. Keith doesn't anymore.
Nope.
But, it took him down. I don't know why he was doing it, but I know that he liked it more than his fear of, dying did not outweigh his fear of being without heroin.
Yeah.
But he was a good man. He was a soulful man, incredibly talented man. One of the biggest, saddest things about the Heartbreakers is that Howie never sang lead on a song on a Heartbreakers record.
God, he
was a wonderful singer.
His backgrounds.
He was a great producer. Howie was a serious cat, and that record was a dark time, but it wasn't all sadness. It was just a dark and strange time. But the subject material is pretty sad.
Oh yeah,
and pretty
Lonesome
dark.
Son. Man, that song.
The song Echo.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Echo is an amazing piece of work. I think there's a song called "Counting on You" that's just the deal.
I love it.
And there's a lot of really good stuff on Echo. I'm a big fan of the Echo record, but there's a couple of songs that come on every time that sink it for me. And they're usually different songs.
Right.
But I always go for Counting on You. I always go for Echo. I always go for Room at the Top.
How about Rhino Skin?
Rhino Skin, I don't like the Elephant Balls line.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I actually said, please, please, please. And Tom's like, I like that. And Rick's like, I like that. And I'm like, It just takes me out because it's just too gnarly of an image.
Yeah.
I get the metaphor, but it's too gnarly of an image.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful song.
It's a really dark record, and that's the era where I played with the guys, and I could see that Howie was gone, and I was wondering what it was like to tour with guys like that, as far as like, oh my God, is he going to be alive tomorrow?
It wasn't fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. He was my friend. He was like, and Stanley was gone, and Howie's my best friend. And it's like, holy fuck. And now Howie's going to be gone. And Howie was gone.
Yeah.
But, the band had to deal with me, not on heroin, but on tons of blow and drunk out of my fucking mind. The band dealt with me for a very long time.
You were doing blow?
I was doing Quaaludes. I was drinking, gallons and gallons and gallons. I was a mess.
Right.
For the first 10 or 12 years of the band.
Wow.
12, yeah.
Just out doing
Just
the rock star thing?
Mess. Yeah, just being a born alcoholic. I was never any good at being a rock star or a rock musician. I was never any good at that kind of thing, but just, garden variety alcoholic, meaning, like you wake up in the afternoon in the garden and you're still hungover and you don't know how you got there.
Yeah.
And there's a phone next to you and you don't know who you drunk dialed. Garden variety drunk. Yeah.
You clean now?
Yeah, clean.
How long
for
you been clean?
30 years.
30?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats, dude.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's amazing. I haven't partied since 92.
Yeah.
Smoke any weed?
No.
Nothing.
I don't do
Just zero.
I don't do anything.
Yeah.
And I do the psychiatric meds that I need to do, because if I don't do those, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But that's all
Are you
I
on
do.
antidepressants?
I was. I'm not right now. I'm on something for anxiety that's so mild.
Like an Ativan?
No, not even as strong as Ativan. Just because I don't want to take anything that I'll feel too much. So I have to kind of do most of it through meditation and therapy and AA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So take care of myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't done anything since March of '88.
Wow. Congrats, dude.
Hey, thanks. I'm congrats to you too,
Yeah.
Because it can get out of hand.
Oh, yeah.
It will not be your friend.
Yeah, and as you get older, I think you realize I kind of want to live.
I didn't realize anything. I was a disaster. Two things happened. An Irish cat from a band called The Undertones named Fergal Sharkey had a solo record, and he cut a song that I wrote. Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics produced it.
Yeah.
And it was a hit, not in America, but in like the UK and Europe and Australia and stuff, called You Little Thief. And I was really happy about that. And then a year later, they want to cut another song of mine called More Love for You in My Heart Than His Can Ever Hold, or something like that. And they have me come down to the studio to play it. And we can't get the track. And we can't get the track because me, who wrote the song, can't play it worth a shit. And I don't think I was high at the studio session. I was just such a deteriorated person that I couldn't make it work. So they wound up cutting my song with a different keyboard player without me even being there.
Wow.
So that's one thing that let me know I'm really fucked up. Another was my best drug buddy said, I'm not talking to you until you're in rehab. And she meant it. And she was the most fucked up person I'd ever seen. And I was too fucked up for her. And the third one was Stanley called me up one day and said, hey, come down to A&M this afternoon. Me and Henley are going to cut some stuff. And I had to say, Stanley, I can't. I've been drunk for so long. I'm too hungover. I can't play.
Whoa.
And at that point, it was like, fuck. And so my therapist had lined up a rehab for me, and he was giving me antidepressants to try to keep me alive, he told me later, long enough to get to rehab. And so I just kind of went, will you drive me to rehab and drop me off? And he said, absolutely. And I was beaten down. I didn't make a decision I wanted to live. I didn't do anything. I was just like, I'm fucked. I give up. Somebody like put me on a cart and wheel me away.
Wow. So you called the band and tell them you're going to be gone for a while?
I didn't tell the band because I talked to Howie about it. I talked to my friend, the biggest druggie in the world, who was also a friend of Howie's. And Howie wasn't fucked up at the time.
Right.
And they both were like, look, you want to see if you can do this. You don't want to set yourself up for failure. You want to like do this as a private thing for you. So I didn't tell the band until I'd been in there for like a week or 10 days. Yeah.
Wow. That's great though, man.
I told Al Cooper. He came down.
No shit.
It was Easter time. He came down and brought me like a turkey sandwich for like Easter celebration because I was in there for Easter one time. Yeah.
It's a tough ride, right? Like when your first week, and also when you get back on stage, it's amazing where you go like, holy shit, I've been medicated so much that now I enjoy feeling. I got feeling on stage.
Yeah, it was very strange because the way you could, even if you weren't drunk, if you just had a shot of whiskey, then it would loosen you up. And there's a point where I did play really, really well if I was a little bit loose. Sometimes I played great when I was really fucked up. But by the end, like I said, I couldn't play my own songs.
Would the band say something to you, the Heartbreakers?
The
Like, hey,
band
dude,
was
you're
like-
kind of fucking up tonight.
The band, they didn't have to.
Yeah.
But, God bless them. Like, Tom was very loyal. It's like Stanley, he fired Stanley after 20 years, and he never fired me. Although I went to rehab, and the cat that was assigned my roommate didn't know what I did. And I said, and we're just talking about music, and he said, yeah, my buddy, I just found out he's up for being the keyboard player for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
You just heard that in rehab?
I heard that in rehab from my roommate.
Holy
and
shit.
I'm like, what the fuck? And I call up Tom, and I call up Mike, and they're like, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm fucked up, but really? And they're both like, no, that's not remotely true. And I think somebody that was peripherally involved in business management or peripherally involved in some capacity, not musically with the band, had said, hey, I hear the keyboard player's really fucked up. Maybe I can get you a shot. And this guy's friend had extrapolated it into, I got a shot. But that was a nice wake-up call. Like,
holy shit.
They would have been within their rights. I was a disaster.
Yeah. But man,
I was a bloody disaster.
What a weird thing to hear in rehab by fluke.
I was a disaster, but the last thing but I could still play up until a few months before, I could still play. Because we toured with Dylan in 87.
Yeah.
At the end of the Dylan tour, where I tried to stay sober for that European leg of the Dylan tour, I crashed and drank a ton of booze, canceled a tour with Elvis Costello because I knew that if I went on a tour right then I would die, and drank as much as I could and did as many drugs as I could, including a little bit of heroin at the end, for 6 months, and then I crawled into rehab.
Wow. Were you
I
smoking
crashed
the heroin or shooting it?
Smoking.
Yeah.
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 But only a couple times.
Yeah.
But I knew that I liked this stuff, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. But my point is, Tom was really loyal, because he didn't fire me, I was a disaster. I could play, but I'd be 3 hours late for a photo shoot because I'd do too many quaaludes. I would miss, the limo would show up to take me to the plane to go on a tour, and I would answer the door going, huh? Because I would have done so many ludes that night to take care of all the blow I'd done.
Wow.
That I would have to take a later flight. I was a mess. It wasn't a pretty thing.
Wow.
So, and so I watched Howie go farther. And I watched Howie not come back.
I saw him on stage, completely nod off. And he was leaning over. I go, he's going to fall over. I was in the third row. I go, he's going to fall over. I can't believe it. But he was nailing those backgrounds, boy, like perfect.
Howie was a really special guy. He was a really seriously special guy. And drug addiction is not a joke. And the glamorous appeal of being drugged and dissipated and just the fun of the feeling of being high, well, that's all real. But at the end, it's a lie. I talked to a cat once who worked with the Kabbalah Center, some people call it the Kabbalah Center, the Jewish mysticism, that form of Jewish mysticism. And because I was just curious about stuff, so I was meeting with him every now and then talking. And I said, so the deal with drugs, because I used to do a lot of drugs, is it makes you feel like you're connected with God, but you aren't. It's all just, and you come crashing down. He said, no. When you are high and you feel like you're connected with God, you are connected with God, but you didn't earn it. And that's why there's the payback.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And that's pretty powerful shit.
That is.
I don't know.
Wow.
But yeah, drugs, nobody's going to ever talk anybody out of drugs.
Nope.
Ever. And so, all I'll say is, like, it was not nice to me, and a lot of stuff I would have accomplished in my life that I didn't because I was fucked up.
Yeah.
And there's things that I missed and things I don't remember because I was fucked up. And the gigs that I played since I stopped getting fucked up and since I played gigs completely clear-headed, those things are really, really priceless and precious. And I could do shit that I never could have done fucked up. But yeah, if you go out there and you feel like you're playing your ass off when you're drunk, listen back to a tape. Maybe you are. Keith Richards did Exile on Main Street, fucked up as all hell,
Yeah. Yeah, what a record, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's the problem. People always go like, "Whoa, I mean, Keith did it," like Keith is like
Keith did it, but like also Albert Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, like because his brain was made that way, and Keith's body is made that way, and yours isn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
And Brian Jones's wasn't.
Nope. How did you guys do the songwriting? Did you guys split any songwriting?
No. The songwriting, my belief is that if you write the song, you wrote the song.
Right.
I know a lot of bands split the publishing or split the songwriting or whatever, but I never wrote a song that was on a Heartbreakers record. I write songs. I'm a songwriter.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, songwriter is a big word, but I do write songs. But Tom and Mike, and on the solo records, Jeff Lynne would co-write some. They wrote the songs, so I didn't write it, so I don't get anything for it. Now, the argument is, yes, but it's our version of Refugee that's on the radio all the time. And so that's a valid argument to say, well, cut the bandit on some publishing. But we're pretty old school. We were never like that. We were just like, okay.
Right.
Did you write the song? No. Like, what word did you write? None of them. I played organ on it. Great. You're in the band, and the band makes money off the records. Great. But you didn't write the song.
Right. So it was split by sales and touring.
It's split by, we had it worked out.
Right.
We had it worked out.
Got it, yeah.
Yeah.
Your solo record, I was playing it the last couple of days. The thing is, there's some songs on there that are incredible.
Thank you.
There's a song on there, Hannah, and another one, Karina.
Yeah.
These are incredible songs, man.
Karina's an old traditional song.
Yeah.
That's been done a million ways, and that's kind of like a version of Bob Dylan's version.
Right. Is Bob singing? Who's singing on that?
On Karina?
Yeah, you?
Oh, no, I'm singing the whole record.
You sing the whole record,
but
wow.
Bob did a really sweet version that's faster, but it's basically the one that I learned the song off of.
Right.
But there's a million versions of Karina. Taj Mahal does a really great version. There's nothing like the one I did or like the one that Bob does. And Hannah is a song that I wrote, Yeah, Hannah's a song of mine.
Great song.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny because if you listen to if Mike Campbell put a record out or you put a record out or it's got Petty, it's got some. Here comes that. Yeah, it's got to. It's got that thing. The Rickenbacker 12 strings or the.
Well, it's just you play with Cap for your whole life, and remember, I played with Tom and Mike. I sat in with them, I think, at the end of '71.
Right. Oh.
The first time I sat in with them. And by 72 or the fall of 71, if I was around, I was playing with them.
71.
71. So I'm no good at math, but it's almost half a century. It's almost 50 years of playing with Tom and Mike.
You've done a lot of stuff with Stevie Nicks. And
I used to work with Stevie, the first couple solo records she did.
The big ones.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you played on Fiona Apple.
A little. Fiona doesn't need any help. Fiona's a badass.
Yeah, that was the first record, right?
Fiona's a lesson. No, I didn't play on the first record. I played on Extraordinary Machine. I played on a song or two. But Fiona has John Bryan and Patrick Warren.
Right.
And they can both play the shit out of it. And she's a really good piano player herself. And Fiona is a lesson in life, and especially a lesson in performance, either in a studio or on a stage, is a lesson in reality. It's like, why don't bullshit. Show business, like people who are really good at show business, it's a thrill. I love it. To see somebody who's really good at showbiz, or somebody like Springsteen who can do the showbiz but still genuinely form a bond with the audience, that's great shit. Somebody like Bowie who could do the just total showbiz thing, or
Petty.
Yeah, but the people who are just mythic and step out on a stage, that's great. And Fiona is pretty mythic to me, but Fiona also gets out there and she's like, it's real. This isn't put on. Stevie Nicks, it's real. It isn't put on. You can look at all the scarves, you can look at the veils, you can look at the talk about, this is a song about a witch, you can look at all this stuff. That woman's not fake at all. There's no bullshit to Stevie Nicks.
Yeah.
And there's zero bullshit to Fiona Apple. And I really like to see people play and not have the bullshit, the showbiz bullshit. Now, like I said, good showbiz, that's a fantastic thing. Tom Waits can do some showbiz. All the great people can do some showbiz.
Right.
The Rolling Stones, there's a lot of showbiz there.
Absolutely.
But the best Rolling Stones is just those 5 guys. Holy shit. And when I saw the Bridges to Babylon tour, it was really good. It was at wherever the Anaheim Ducks played, the Pond or whatever. But in the middle of the show, they had a tiny stage in the center of the arena.
Yeah,
they came out, and it was just Darryl Jones on bass, Chuck Leavell on keyboards, and Charlie Watts, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, and Ronnie Wood. And they played 2 or 3 songs. And that was the shit.
Yeah.
That was the absolute shit. There was nothing. There wasn't room for Mick to dance around much, a little bit.
Yeah.
But there was just this focused, tight 5
He
guys.
plays that, this could be the last time.
It was just so
and you're just
good.
Like, whoa.
It was just so fucking good. And that's the thing. When you get around those people, they're that good. Johnny Cash was like that. He was that good. You don't need a wall of showbiz. Could he project mythos? He was mythos. I think Christopherson said that hanging out with Johnny Cash was like Abraham Lincoln with a wild side.
Wow.
Or he may have said Abraham.
Yeah.
You know, like the patriarch with a wild side. But those cats, that's real. But the thing to me is like, just be for real. I want somebody to be for real, especially these days with all the shit. With, like I said, MTV came along, and it wasn't just once a week you can see rock music on television. Everybody's got their rock face. Everybody's got this. Everybody does that. Everybody knows how it goes. Music nowadays is on a grid. There's never a surprise on a record. You know, the intro's going to be like this. You know, this is going to happen. And it's not even going to get excited enough in the chorus to speed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's all mapped out.
Yep.
The singer isn't even going to bend a note because it's all corrected.
It's all on radar,
bullshit.
yeah.
It's all total bullshit. So you better have a really good song, and you better have a really good performance. Jesus, it bores the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I don't want to know.
Yeah.
You look at that clip of the MC5 with Wayne Kramer singing Ramblin' Rose when they're outdoors. It's a black and white clip, I think.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
Is it the best vocal performance? No. Is it the most rock and roll thing you're going to find on YouTube that day? Fuck hell yes.
You do you watch a lot of YouTube rock and roll? I do. It's great.
I don't. Every now and then I dive in.
Yeah.
Every now I dive in and try to find something. The thing that makes the most to me is to go to a small place and see somebody play live.
Like the Hotel Cafe or Largo.
Good. I go to Largo all the time. Largo changed my life.
Yeah.
And Largo is just, you go see somebody play, or I have a baby now, so it's harder to do. I used to have people over to the house every 3 or 4 weeks and just play music together.
Wow.
And if you're in...
Who would be there?
David Rawlings and Gillian Welch would be there sometimes. Sean and Sarah Watkins would be there a lot. Different people, Blake Mills. Harper Simon came sometimes. One time he brought his dad. That was a trip. Because I look around and I got Mike Campbell, Gillian Welch, David Rawlings, Sean Watkins, Sarah Watkins, Sebastian Steinberg, Harper Simon, and Paul Simon. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? But generally it's just a bunch of friends. But
Harper's records are great.
Yeah, Harper's really good. But if you're just sitting there and Gillian Welch says, do you know this Bob Dylan song? Or do you know this Grateful Dead song? Or do you know this? And you have these people who are just so bloody good who really sing a song not to emote or sell it, but just sing the honest heart of the song. And they're 2 feet away from you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing to me, is I generally like bands with less showbiz. I generally like bands that don't have extra musicians to make it sound more like the record. I generally really prefer to see like, oh, you got overdubs on the record. Well, how are you going to pull it off with just the 4 of you?
Yeah.
And in the Heartbreakers, especially early on, it was like, how are we going to make that work? And when we got Scott Thurston, it's like, we can do that extra guitar part. We can have that, that trigger. We can do this background part. We can do all of that. Because Scott was in the Stooges, like the Kill City era. Yeah. Scott was there. Scott's on like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
Scott's on I'm bored. You know,
Wow.
so Scott's a deep cat, and he's a great piano player too.
Was he related to Tom? Like married?
No,
I thought Tom was married to someone that was related to him or something.
No, I think we knew him from the motels.
Gotcha.
And we were looking for somebody to do that kind of thing. And Stanley, I think, said, "Hey, how about Scott Thurston?" And everybody loved him.
Yeah.
He's a soulful cat.
But
I really like, like the Beatles, and I Love Her. There's a riff, ba-da-da-da, on the guitar.
Oh, yeah, love that.
Right? And it rings over, and then there's the other riff is like a broken da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, so they had only a couple of tracks. They're cutting this song. George or Paul or whoever's playing guitar on that, I'm sure it's George, is doing that, and he has to let the note ring. And nowadays, a guitar player would overdub something to start when the vocal starts. Not George. He has to wait till the second bar to start up the next pattern. And the space that's in there is so gorgeous and so much better than if they'd gone in and overdubbed something. And to see a band live, to see a band, a really good three-piece, and there aren't a lot, but a really good three-piece, when the solo comes and the rhythm guitar drops out, live, there's no rhythm guitar. On the record, there was a rhythm guitar, and they overdubbed the solo. But a really good band is like, okay, how are you going to keep this full? And it's an art. Not every guitar player can play in a three-piece.
Right.
Not everybody knows, there's a certain way you got to do the solo for it to work if the rhythm's going to drop out. It's, yeah. I'm rambling.
No, I get it though. It's a total art, man. It's like, that's why people have these keyboard players over there running all kinds of patches.
Yeah, and I would really rather see what the original lineup could do by themselves without anybody else.
Totally, man. I mean,
I'd much rather see
who's good at that? Wilco.
Wilco's really good at that. But Wilco's got they've got a big enough band to make it all happen. And Sansoni can play everything, But if you get like a small band, like a 4-piece or a 5-piece, and go, oh really? How are you going to make that work? And in the Heartbreakers in the early days especially, it was really fun. Yeah. And for me, it was always fun not to have a tape run of some keyboard part, but to go, okay, how am I going to do this? How the hell am I going to do this?
Yeah.
Because that was always the thing, that it'd be like the song would start with piano, and there'd be an organ coming on the chorus, and maybe we'd put a synthesizer on the bridge, added on top of it. We'd be playing it live and be like, how the hell am I going to layer this thing and make it work?
Yeah.
And I always did. And I'd much rather do that. And Scott was playing guitar. He had a keyboard for starting the sequence bass on Running Down a Dream, because live that was Blair and the sequence bass doubling, don, 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 don. So Scott's playing guitar. He's not playing keyboard. So how am I going to do all this stuff? And it's like, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It isn't fun to go, man, I sped up. I guess, they'll correct it when they fix it in Pro Tools. It's like, no, how do I play this right?
Yeah.
And and also live, and that's getting back around Fiona. Fiona's pretty real,
What's the sound at the top of Crawling Back to You? It's like it sounds like a reverse
Mellotron. I think it's a Mellotron
reversed.
And, no, it's just played, and I think it's a Mellotron. It may be a Farfisa, a really oddball Farfisa on there too.
It's so great. That's my favorite song. Probably
it's a good song.
Out of those sessions, hands down.
It's a good song. I don't even remember recording that song. I was stone cold sober for several years. I just don't even remember recording it. I remember doing the Mellotron, but I don't remember doing the basic track, which may mean that I was really into the music.
It's got the great piano shit on it, man.
Yeah, I thanks. It's a beautiful song. It's just a beautiful song.
What was that Dylan tour like, man? I mean, you guys, you're out, you're the Heartbreakers, you worship Dylan, you love the band, and now all of a sudden you become Dylan's band. Was that were you just blown away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a lot better as a band playing under Bob, because Bob has that swing, that old swing we were talking about when we first started talking. Bob understands that. He knows it, and he knows it from the hillbilly side. He knows it from the ancient, like, Celtic ballad side. He knows it from the Appalachian side, and he knows it from the black side. He knows all of that stuff. He's got that swing. He's got that knowledge. He's got that understanding. So we got to play with him and kind of like get to where we could understand it. And Stanley and I just dove in as deep as we could to just grab onto that. I love the way Bob Dylan plays piano. I love the way he plays rhythm guitar. I think he's a pretty interesting lead guitar player too. But as a rhythm guitar player and as a piano player, I love what he does. And he's unique, but he's got a feel. He's got a rhythm that's just astounding, and it's a blessing to be in the world when Bob Dylan is walking the world. And it's a rare thing. It's like being around when Walt Whitman's around or Shakespeare's around.
Yeah.
Or, God, who knows?
I mean, that guy is just like, the guy's just unbelievable.
It's like being around when Aretha Franklin's around. We're around, Aretha is around. Holy shit.
Would he just call audibles when you guys were out there? Because I know Dylan likes to just switch it up.
He didn't call audibles very often. Every now and then, he might change a key sometimes. Every now and then he'd call an audible, and it'd be wonderful, because once or twice he called an audible that would be just me and Mike.
Yeah.
And one time in Australia, very early touring, we were playing a festival in Melbourne, and so there's, 60, 120,000 people there. I don't know. Don't think it was a very big festival, but there was enough people. And he's on the far end of the stage over by the background singers, who were these great legendary gospel stars in their own right. And he starts playing these chords, and he's over by Howie, because it's Howie and Tom. Tom's playing rhythm. And he plays like 2 bars, and I'm like, what are we going to play? We didn't rehearse this. We rehearsed a lot. What's up? And then he plays 2 more bars, and I'm like, holy fuck, we're going to play Desolation Row.
Whoa.
And I love Desolation Row. And, of course, we all know Desolation Row. He doesn't have to go around and show us the chords, but holy fuck, without rehearsal, full band, we're going to play Desolation Row.
Wow.
And we did. And, oh, man. And sometimes he would just have me and Mike, and we'd just he'd say, do you know Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll? I'm like, yes, I know Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll. We're going to do that. We did that in Sweden, just me and him and maybe Mike, and it was jaw-dropping. 20,000 people, never played it before. And that's what I love to do, and there are bands that do that. But the Heartbreakers weren't a band that would just kind of wing it like that, usually live. Yeah. And I really like that. I love that.
I love that.
And so I go to Largo, and that's what we do at Largo. We wing it, and I'm doing solo shows at Largo, and I know I'm responsible. I'm sure that I'm in shape, and I know what I have the songs to do, but also you wing it. You're as much fresh and in the moment. I saw Elvis Costello play in 1982 on the Imperial Bedroom Tour at the Greek in Berkeley, and it was fantastic. And I had seats up high enough; they were close enough because it's that theater, which is one of the great ones in the country. But I could see Steve Naive playing. And Steve Naive is an astounding keyboard player, a lovely guy. And you could almost see him thinking. And you could tell he's playing the piano, and you could almost see him go, oh, but what would happen if I played like the French horns on the sampler right now? And he'd just kind of throw his hand over there and like play the French horns on the sampler. You could almost see his mind working. And he may have it all planned out, but I think he's going, I'm in the moment. What happens now? The first take is so often the best take if you've got the right band. Our band sometimes would do, like, as we all know, 100 takes of Refugee, but also Mary Jane is either the first or the second take.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the last thing Stan ever recorded with us, and it's the first or second take.
Wow.
Because we knew what we were doing. Yeah. Because we could feel each other. And the band could still do that, because there was, on the later Heartbreakers records and the Mudcrutch record, that would also happen. And then sometimes be like, shit, this sucks. Let's do it again.
Yeah. I was at the last gig, Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah. 3rd
row.
Yeah.
I never forgot it.
How was it?
It was incredible.
I liked it.
It was incredible. I had Lucinda opened. I felt like here I am again. Lucinda being one of my favorites. And
oh, yeah.
Lucinda Petty. And it was, I think you guys played Crawling Back to You. And I was like, oh my God, because you guys were diving kind of deep into the Wildflowers stuff there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was mesmerized because I was thinking, I grew up on this band and they're still playing and they're selling out everywhere and people are getting to see humans play instruments with 20 songs of hits. You know what I mean? It's
we've been talking about doing Wildflowers live.
Right.
The whole thing and how to do it. And we could have done it.
I know.
I would love to have done that. And I wouldn't have wanted to do it in some pristine way. I didn't get to go, but the Rolling Stones did the whole Sticky Fingers record down at Echo.
Right.
And
at the Fonda.
Yeah, at the Fonda.
Yep.
Yeah, and they also did Echo one, that Club Echo one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Maybe that was the Fonda, but I didn't get to go. However, I heard that what Jagger said was, "But you don't play it in the order it is on the album because an album and a show are different."
Right.
And it's the truth. And so I would have wanted to go out and not necessarily play everything exactly like it is on the record, and not do it in the order it is on the record or anything, and maybe not even do the whole record every night because that's an awful lot of stuff from one record. But to do something like that, there was a lot to do. There was a lot left to do.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's just the way it is.
It's really when you get a wake-up call about being human.
Yeah, I had a few wake-up calls about being human, you know. I always appreciated everything we had. I just thought he was too tough to go.
Yeah.
He was a strong motherfucker.
Yeah.
He was a strong motherfucker. But that night, that Monday or whatever it was, at 10 minutes to 8 p.m., or 10 minutes to 9 p.m., I think, Richard Fernandez knocked on the dressing room door and said, "Let's head to the stage." Exactly 1 week later, at 20 minutes to 9 p.m., so only 10 minutes apart, Tom passed away. And it's just the craziest fucking thing, 1 week later. And it is the craziest fucking thing. But, yeah, it's a good rock and roll band. You can't say that about every rock and roll band. It was a good rock and roll band. And it was, and it still is family.
I don't think I still don't think I'm over it. And you guys were in the band, so
Look,
I can
imagine. It's never gonna completely sink in.
Every time a song comes on the radio, I go, oh.
It's never gonna completely sink in that it's like, I don't get the call that Tom feels like just getting the band together to play.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get that call. And the other thing that struck me really strong not long after he passed away was there is nobody for me to play Chuck Berry with anymore. Because that fucker understood how to play Chuck Berry and how to sing Chuck Berry. Mike understands how to play Chuck Berry. But to be on rhythm guitar and sometimes lead guitar and to sing that shit for real, I don't think anybody was better than Tom.
Yeah.
And there isn't anybody for me personally to really play Chuck Berry with. I will continue to play Chuck Berry, but it's never going to be as good as it was with Tom. And Chuck Berry means a lot to me.
Right.
Playing that thing means a lot to me. So to get that sound that you make playing with another human being, I know why Led Zeppelin broke up.
Yeah, right.
What the hell would you do? It's like, you can't make that sound.
Yeah.
Bonham's gone, you're not going to make that sound. What's the point?
Has anybody approached you guys as being like the front man? Like I thought maybe Springsteen would take out the Heartbreakers.
The Heartbreakers were not. The thing is, the Heartbreakers, who knows what'll happen, but the Heartbreakers were never Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. It was just the Heartbreakers. He was the guy that played rhythm guitar and sang lead.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
That's what I always
thought. It wasn't
thought.
like a backup band that was like a hired backup band. It wasn't like a backup band that is even like Otis Redding with Booker T and the MGs at Monterey Pop or whatever. Or was it the Marquis that backed him up at Monterey Pop? Regardless, that great European Stax tour where all the artists sing with Booker T and the MGs.
Right.
Well, that's Booker T and the MGs. But the Heartbreakers were never Booker T and the MGs.
Yeah.
We were Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and the core of that band. Without Tom, what are you going to do? Without Tom, what's the point?
Right.
Right. I love those cats and I love playing with them, but to be the Heartbreakers with somebody else doesn't but you never know what's going to happen.
You never know.
You never know. I know better than to close the door. And somebody said the other day, I went to church, and the preacher quoted Gracie Allen, George Burns' wife. The last letter that she sent to him, I think it was Gracie, who said, don't end things with a period. Put a comma. Something along those lines. So your life, after something happens, you don't put a period there. You put a comma. So if there's a giant upheaval, if there's a political upheaval, if somebody dies, it's not like Tom died, period. Tom died, comma. Story continues,
What have you been up to these days? You got a daughter now.
I've got a daughter. She's 6.5 months old. She's the whole world. She's a whole handful.
Yeah.
And it takes me and my wife and help. It's 24/7, at least a 2-person job, at least. And she's incredible. And that's it. And I'm playing solo shows at Largo every couple of months.
Awesome.
And I'm going to try to make another record in the fall and see what I can do to go forward with that, because I want to pursue that. I want to,
Yeah, this solo record that you have here, I hadn't listened to it, and I got into it, and I was like, God, this is fantastic.
Thank you.
I really like it a lot.
Thanks. I like the songs I write. I want them to get heard, and if I don't go play them, then they aren't going to get heard, and it's kind of a shame for a song to say, hey, here I am, and then nobody hears it.
Yeah.
So, I didn't want anybody not to hear those songs.
Yeah, it's great.
And Glenn John said to me, you want to make a record someday? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's great. Now, you have all your vintage keys and everything still?
I've got what I've always had, but I was never a big collector. I think because of 50 years of playing, close to 50 years of playing with those guys, there's a bunch of stuff. But basically, I've got the same Hammond I've had since the You're Gonna Get It tour. It's the same Hammond that I played on Refugee. I've had on every tour, and I play on every record, whether it's a session or with somebody else or it's the Heartbreakers, unless, I can't fit it into the room. Or
is it a chopped B3 or just regular?
It's a C3.
A C3.
Which is the same basically with a different cabinet.
Right.
And so I've got that. I've got a Steinway that I've owned for 30 years. I played Yamaha for a while, but my Steinway got restored, and I'm playing the Steinway all the time. And I've got a slew of Wurlitzers and, a few other things, and that's the deal.
You like that other bullshit, the new stuff like Nords and all that?
Nords are useful.
Yeah.
Nords, if you got to use something, Nords are pretty useful. They got some good features, but I'm not a synthesizer guy.
Right.
And I use a Nord live basically to do what I used to do with an ARP string ensemble. And sometimes because I didn't have room to put a clavinet up there. I just didn't.
Right.
And the Nord clavinet's pretty good.
Yeah. How about the Hammond B3, the one they put out now? But
here's the thing: is like all that stuff's amazing because you can actually put it in your car.
Yeah.
And play a show.
Yeah.
You can actually do that, and you don't have to take up all the room on the stage for a grand piano. Nobody has to figure out how to mic it and put a good pickup in it. Nobody has to tune it every day. It doesn't have to be carded. It doesn't take up all the room that the guitar player would love to have to run all over the stage, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
If you use a Nord, if you use a Yamaha sampled piano, if you use this, that, the other thing, all that kind of stuff. And that's all great, and they all sound pretty cool. But if you can use the real thing, and I've been blessed in my career to where I could use the real thing is different.
Yep.
The real thing to me is better. It's like if I'm in the car, I'll listen to a CD. If I'm out traveling, I'll listen to an MP3. I'll stream something. I use Tidal, which I pay for. And if I really like the song and I listen to it a lot, I buy the fucker, and you should, because the artist is worth being paid. So all that stuff, it's great. We're in Italy. I've got this great little JBL speaker, and I put my iPhone on, and I've got stuff on Tidal that I listen to. I got all sorts of stuff like that. Fantastic, great. I walk in the door, I put on a record, and I'm like, yeah. And same thing with keyboards. It's like, all that stuff's great. It's all great. There's not a damn thing wrong with it. But if you're in that crazy position where you can have them bring your Hammond that you've played most of your life out to play, bring your Hammond.
Yeah.
I don't see a bunch of guitar players going, yeah, this digital guitar is just as good as my Stratocaster.
Yeah.
You never see the guitar players do that, but they're always like, well, why don't you just play this digital thing?
Yeah, yeah. That's why I was like, hey, why don't you?
You don't see the guitar players.
Yeah.
There was a brief period I saw Joni Mitchell use a digital guitar once, and God bless her, but it sounded awful.
Yeah.
She liked it because
like
you could
the
push
Parker Fly or
well, you
something.
could push a button and it could change all the tuning for her in a flash. And she uses these miraculous tunings, but it didn't sound good. So it's like, why do you think that a digital piano is going to sound good? It sounds fine, but compared to a real one.
Yeah.
Like it's all comparison. That's all. But hey, you might very well see me somewhere playing a digital one because they sound fine, and sometimes that's the only option you got.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't always fit a Steinway on a stage,
I can't thank you enough for doing the show, man.
Man, I'm really happy to. I'm sorry it was so hard to schedule because what happened is we come home from the tour.
Yep.
Tom passes away.
Yeah.
Our daughter is on the way.
Yeah.
Our daughter's born. My tongue cancer comes back for a third time, and I have to go get cancer surgery.
Wow.
How
is that tongue cancer?
It's good. If I sound like I'm slurring, I'm stone cold sober. I'm just.
No, you sound fine.
They took
and what was
chunk.
it from, smoking?
They said it was from smoking and drinking, and when it first showed up in 2010 or something like, or whenever it first showed up, I was like. At that point, I had quit smoking 15 years before and quit drinking, 7 years before that. And I'm like, but hey, I quit. And they're like, it's patient. It is patient.
Wow.
So that's what that's from. So I've had 3 cancer surgeries for that.
How did you know you had that?
It hurt. Like I'd brush my teeth, and in one spot on my tongue, the toothpaste hurt.
Wow.
And I'd think, well, that's nothing. And I went to a whole bunch of doctors who said it's some kind of a yeast thing, take these. And they all looked at it, and they were great doctors, like great vocal, ear, nose, and throat people who treat incredible artists and stuff like that. They're like, well, it isn't cancer. I don't know what it is. And it persisted. And finally, one guy said, I don't know what it is. Go see this woman. And I went to see a woman who was apparently the best oral cancer specialist on the West Coast. She went, you're precancerous, and she watched it for a couple of years. They took a chunk. It was completely gone. A year later, out of nowhere, it pops back up.
Wow.
They took another chunk, and it was completely gone for over 5 years, which is when they say you're cancer-free. And then this winter, right after our daughter was born, it's like, oh, by the way, it's back.
Whoa.
And the surgeon is fantastic. It's just, that's nasty and persistent stuff. I have not had to do chemo, and I have not had to do radiation.
Oh, God.
I would prefer not to.
Right.
And hopefully it's all gone now.
Yeah, man, I'm just glad you're here,
No, I'm glad I'm here, too. I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I only had that surgery. I have friends I've had several friends who've had to go through the whole chemo radiation thing for different kinds of cancer. I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I've had a couple different kinds of cancer. I got surgery for both of them,
You had some other cancer?
I had prostate, and I had oral cancer.
Wow.
And I'm here to tell the tale. You can survive if you get it in time. And I'm great. I'm really I'm great.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful. And I'm here. But the deal was, it was funny to me because I kept saying, I can't do it this week. I can't do it this month. I can't do it now. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to New York for the summer. I'm like, oh, man, I feel like such a jerk.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but I'm going like.
Dude, I mean, I understand.
But
it's
I've
like
got
Tom
all
passes,
of this,
you got a daughter.
all of this stuff going on. And it's like, hey. And then I was going to Italy. And it's like,
Yeah.
So, but we did it.
We did it.
We did it. We finally did it. I wanted to pick your brain about all sorts of stuff. I mean.
Yeah, like
did you
what?
talk to Neil Preston?
What's that?
Did you talk to Neil Preston?
I did.
God, now Neil Preston. Yeah.
He's, Neil. I love the Neil interview.
So do I.
But Neil is hilarious because he's a Who guy.
Yeah.
And I'm a Zeppelin guy.
Yeah.
So my obsession was he's the only guy ever that I'm going to talk to that was on that Zeppelin plane.
Yep.
And it's like he was just discarding that, like, yeah, but the Who, and I'm like, yeah, fuck the Who, man. You were on this plane. What was that like? You know what I mean?
I used to know Neil. Because he and Cameron Crowe had been roommates at one point, I think.
Right,
and,
they were.
And I know Cameron, but I haven't seen Neil in years. But Neil's really good. I really dug that interview, and the Jerry Cantrell too. So I could talk to you for hours and days, and we could go into the varieties of like the hard rock bands that I prefer, or like I said, the ones that have the swing, which is AC/DC, Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and then as it goes further closer to here, I hear the swing go away, and I hear these geniuses like Danny Carey, but I don't feel the same swing there.
Yeah.
And he's a genius. And who's playing drums with Pucifer? We went to see Pucifer at the
good.
Ace, and that Pucifer show, the drums were front and center, like the kick drum was maybe 6 inches from the front of the stage, front and center. And there was a La Lucha League, there was a wrestling match.
Yeah.
La Leche League, that's the wrestling people. There was the Mexican wrestling ring set up
Right.
behind that. And Maynard was in the dark with a wrestling mask on or something, singing back there. And the drums were in the front with a spotlight on them. And it was staggering, whoever it is. Holy moly, my hat's off. I thought they said Josh Freese, and I was like, that doesn't look like Josh Freese.
Right, yeah.
And I know Josh played with Perfect Circle for a while.
Yeah, he did. I had Josh on the show. I've known him for like 30 years.
Josh is really bloody good. First time I saw Josh, who I barely know him, but he's a great guy from my knowledge of him, and a great drummer. Paul Westerberg left the Replacements, did a solo performance at the Whiskey, and he's got this drummer with curly hair. And the drummer's a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And he introduces him and says, and on drums, Josh Freese, and the guy pulls the curly hair off, and he had shaved his head under threw the curly hair away. I'm like, okay.
He played Devo also.
Oh, yeah, Josh is really bloody good.
He played with Sting.
Josh is really bloody good. There's a lot of really bloody good people, I'll tell you.
How do you feel about... I feel that you really, really had a lot of influence on Rami Jaffe and also Charlie from Counting Crows, you know?
I don't know about Charlie, although Charlie's really good. And Charlie, his effects loop, he's got an Echoplex. I tried to make an Echoplex. An actual Echoplex would work in my effects loop. I couldn't pull it off. Charlie's really, really good. Me and Rami will joke about it, but I steal stuff from Rami. I hear Rami do stuff. I go, you only used one drawbar? What? Hey, hold on a second. So, yeah, we're friends.
That's great, man. Thank you so much.
I need to get back to the wife and child.
And everybody follow Benmont on Twitter and Instagram.
On Twitter, I'm Bench10, and on Instagram, it's Benmont Tench III. And if you're mad at me, try to be nice and tell me why you're mad at me.
Yeah.
People are mad at me sometimes. That's all right.
Oh, man. And then go see you at Largo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be up there August 8th. Yeah, it's called Benmont Tench and Hopefully Friends.
I'll go.
Because I don't know if anybody's going to show up. I don't know if there's any guests.
Yeah.
But the first couple shows we had Campbell and Regina Spektor and Hattie Webb, and the second show we had Peter Frampton and Lucinda Williams. So.
Ooh, man.
And it was just because a few days before they were in town, they said, hey, what you doing? I'm like, I'm doing this. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Mike Campbell.
It might just be me.
Mike Campbell's out there in Fleetwood Mac now.
Mike's in Fleetwood Mac.
Wow.
There's a rhythm section.
Wow.
There's a rhythm section.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know.
Well, thank you for doing the show.
Thank you, Dean.
And I
God bless you.
I can't thank you enough, and I'm so glad you're here. And I've loved your playing all my life.
Yeah, thank you.
And
thank you.
You're just a genius on those keyboards, man.
Nah.
That's why I was hounding you. I was like, I got to get this guy on.
It's just me.
I love to have the guys on, like the drummers and the keyboard players, because to me, they're the fucking dudes.
Well, that's the deal, and you should find out who it is that was playing in Pucifer and get that cat. And, you know, if you had Danny Carey on, you know, those cats, like, because that's some he's, like, the first time I heard him, I was like, wait, who's that?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing.
Yep.
And Keltner and... Holy moly! There's some, and Ferroni would blow your mind. Ferroni is an astounding cat. He's a really remarkable cat. And if you get to talking to Ferroni, it's very, very interesting.
Oh yeah, I'd love to talk to him.
He's a good man. Yeah, he's a cat. He's a cat.
Thank you, man.
Whoosh. Okay. Dude.
All right, guys. There he is, right there. Tune in, subscribe, leave a review on iTunes and YouTube and all that good stuff. Keep the candles lit.